So, I feel the past several years like part of me is missing, and some of it certainly is because there was a lot that was stolen from me when, the person I made the mistake of getting married to suddenly, well, I thought it was him suddenly deciding to leave. I didn't realize until he told me he had been encouraged to a few months before, and yeah, who knows? I mean, so so yeah, there was plenty that was stolen, and then I moved back to the state where I was born, and yeah, it's the city, pretty much where I was born, except I'm about 30 miles or so from where I was born, out in an area that was more rural and, it's not really like urban, but but yeah, when I moved here, I felt like this place should never have been built. The land shouldn't have been disturbed. It shouldn't have been built, you know, but it was built, and people need places to live, and this is a working class, low income subdivision. All right, so and there's a huge amount of housing going in really close by, and I kind of makes me sad because woods are being torn down, and but I think, well, it's already kind of messed with, so, might as well, I mean, the more people, the more diversity, so, but yeah, and what I want to bitch about for a few minutes is development, and, when I lived, when I had my first house in a mill village in South Carolina, that was pretty far out, and it's an area reputed to be quite rough. And it was getting rougher, perhaps again, before I moved, with recession and things like that. Um, you know, there had been an agreement there would not be development out beyond a certain point, but there was. The developer, he's an aggressive man, went and threatened people and things like that. So another gated development went out there, and some of us fought gray water being put into the river, and yeah, so you know we didn't stop the development, but at least that was prevented. All right, so I think about closer in to Greenville and big houses being built in the area of Paris Mountain and on Paris Mountain, and I really just want to take a few minutes to bitch about development. Thinking about the coast of South Carolina, thinking about Charleston and Mount Pleasant and Beaufort, where people are being pushed out of their homes. It isn't okay. These developments with these big houses that how many people can afford to live in them, and it's are harming nature. I mean, I don't understand the appeal. But some people, I mean, I just don't. It's harmful. It's harmful, and it hasn't. I don't know what is gonna stop it. I guess as long as this country is the way that this country is, and we could talk about these depressing plantation houses that could maybe use some paint jobs and things like that, could use some repatriation to the persons who actually built the houses. I guess as long as there's that model of what is that success, comfort, I mean, uh classy, I mean, I don't know what it is exactly, but perhaps that lays some template for people to, yeah, I want a big house with a perfect view. And I remember being up on Mount Pisgah, quite a few years ago now, I suppose. uh I mean, it was when I lived in Slater, so not 20 years ago, but 15 plus, uh over 15 years ago, being up at Mount Pisgah with Sasha, and well, yeah, it might have been pretty close to 20 years ago. So, we would go up there pretty often actually, and go up the little trail to the top, and getting up there, and some man and his wife and him pointing down and saying, "There's my house, you can see it." And I'm like, "You asshole." I mean, what kind of person wants to do that? What kind of person brags about that? And when you think about the flooding that happened in 2023, in connection with Hurricane Helene, I mean, yeah, none of that has helped, not at all. And I think about a Vietnam veteran who said to me one time when I was talking about, it being upsetting, all the development. Well, the mountains will always be here. So I think the spirit of the mountains will always be there, no matter what, no matter who comes traipsing through and destroying whatever they can destroy, perhaps without having any idea, the harm they are doing. The mountains will always be there. Those are some real ancient mountains. And, yeah, well, anyway, development, again, I think about, reading about on the Soki River that people are building big houses, and it's like, I mean, does it end? What does it take? And what is it? When people are living in so much poverty, there's depression economically, there's instability, and people are working for an entity that, where they're going out and rounding people up and killing people. I mean, what is that? So, yeah, anyhow, just some thoughts. Development, that's always going to be something that I'm fighting in my heart, even if, people have their bulldozers out and just kind of plow us down.